into it, I'll hit start here, and I'm going to expand out the trace panel so we can get into some of the fields that are being rendered by the rules here. Again, what I'm showing first off is just a variety of different prompts, but what I want to refocus on this time we go through the form is what Corticon is and is not responsible for. Everything in the black box effectively is going to be defined explicitly within the rules from Corticon. Now, how do we know what to render when? How do we know that when I hit start then and there, this is what I would like to render? And how do I know that the subsequent step is going to look something like this with the drop down of these fields? Again, everything here within the context of this black box is being defined as within the rules themselves, and the output of the decision service is defining what specifically is being rendered to the end user. So let's open up this trace panel. I mentioned how there are variables that are being passed in up front, such as a language. There are variables that are going to be by default. In the previous stage, we'll see the base stage number that we always start with is going to be 0. And one other thing that we see as a response from the decision service is a field called path2data. Now, that path2data field, as I look for it, it's actually back up here. This was presented from the rules, and what this is doing, it is pointing me to the specific JSON object underneath which I will be storing the accrued data for this particular form that I'm building. So here is the structure of the data as has been captured when I was on that subsequent step. As soon as I hit next, it will accrue that data in this data structure underneath property. Now, you may recall that with the rule vocabulary in Corticon, that's actually a more readable, configurable view of what is a data model that maps to a JSON structure. So similarly, we're working with the JSON structure here, but these are all actually representing an entity in this property and the attributes of that entity. So we're going to be mapping the accrued form data to vocabulary elements that will then be used as we go through this form in order to influence what may or may not be presented or solved for to the end user. Now, when I hit next, we'll see again that's the accrued data from that previous step. As I make a selection here, we'll see I'm going to continue to accrue different pieces of data along the way. Now, you'll also see how I have switched the path2data at this second stage to be quote versus property. As you might recall, I had an entity within the rule vocabulary of this project for the property entity, as well as one for the quote. The property has various different attributes listed here, and quote has a base coverage as one of the string data type attributes, specifically a custom data type for this base coverage attribute of the quote entity. I can set the path2data once and never edit it, and I only need to reassign what the path2data will be in the rules in the case when I want to create or accrue data values underneath a different entity name. So up front at the initial stage, I assigned the path2data to be property. Then I switched over to assigning a new path2data under quote. And what we'll see is I'm actually going to, within the rules, associate this property underneath this quote, so that we're ultimately going to be building a quote that takes into account a property specific to the quote, as well as we'll see coverages be created as associated entities to that quote as well.